Good evening, lovebirds. Love is indeed in the air. And to commemorate this special Valentine's edition of Smooch Fiction, I have written a beautiful poem that I believe captures the spirit of Smash Fiction and its spirit of competition that can sometimes turn messy. On this special day, how sweet you smell, like the freshest cut flowers and the blood in my well. Please take this gift. I hope you stay. You'll look so nice on my silver tray. I'm only kidding. You're just too good. So wait one sec. Let me grab some wood. Thank you.
I've waited my entire life for this.
So welcome to this love-isode of Smooch Fiction, the most outrageously romantic podcast where we tap into your fantasies your tender heart can't handle and then blow it all to meaty bits. This week, we have Shakespeare's devious Iago from Othello trying to break up the endless source of fan fiction that is Ron and Hermione. Dark Lord Voldemort, Harry, Ron, and Hermione give each other tons of high fives and hold lots of sick parties. Unfortunately, beating Voldemort did not yield any treasure to fuel their party boy lifestyle, and the merry band of wizards have set their sights on an entirely new kind of beast, the job market. Due to the threat of Voldemort, the three of them never finished their last year at Hogwarts and never received their fancy magic degrees to get their fancy magic jobs. Since they did get some great on-the-job experience with Voldemort, the Hogwarts administration has agreed to let them graduate if they take a few summer classes. The three agree and begin their summer schooling. Ron and Hermione have never been happier. Hermione has been busy crafting magical love poems and potions, while Ron has been lovingly avoiding accidentally hurting anyone. This absolutely disgusts their new defense against the dark arts teacher, Iago. Exactly. After constantly being rebuffed by Professor McGonagall and not understanding why she doesn't love the cat pelt scarves he presents her with, Iago decides to take his anger out on Ron and Hermione's pathetic relationship. How will he do it? I have no idea who will prevail in this sweet, sweet, sticky love mess. That is why I, Liz Logan, am your indecisive Cupid today. Representing, love-assenting, Iago, are Dan Mulcairn.
You scullion. You Rampallion, you Fustelarian, I'll tickle your catastrophe.
Was that English? Okay. And Colin Mulcairn.
What's he that says I play the villain?
Or speak
Me.
English. Representing Ron and Hermione are Kit Mulcairn.
Are you sure those are real advocates? Well, they're not very good, are they?
At speaking English. And Miles Schneiderman.
Iago, fuck yourself.
Okay.
While speaking English. To determine who loves betterer, the teams had to sit through 50 weddings performed by the impressive clergyman, otherwise known as the priest from The Princess Bride, without falling asleep.
Yeah.
Iago sort of did it. I don't know. It's pretty bad. So they get to go first. Iago, you have the floor.
So Iago's great. He is one of the most complex and intelligent and evil villains in the history of fiction, and I am so glad to be on his side this week. Let's take a look at the last love that Iago destroyed, the love between Othello and Desdemona. Before Iago came along, we can assume that Othello and Desdemona had an absurdly strong relationship. How do we know this? Her father, Brabantio, says that Desdemona was once opposed to the very idea of marriage, that she had shunned all the most wealthy and well-groomed men of their nation. Then she met Othello. She was so in love with him that she was willing to reverse her previous stance and marry this man, despite the fact that he was a Moor. Just think about all the societal pressure keeping these two apart in this time period. This noblewoman who hated marriage is willing to spend the rest of her life not only married, but married to a black man in the 1600s. Racism is a thing, y'all, and so Desdemona just signed up for a life of getting gawked at whenever she walks down the street alongside her husband, and a lifetime of being talked about behind her back by her friends and family. Her father thinks that the only explanation for this action is that Othello bewitched her with magic, but alas, Othello is a muggle. The magic between Desdemona and Othello is a different kind of magic. In the words of Huey Lewis, that's the power of love. Othello himself was also a super smart and level-headed dude. He was a freaking general in the Venetian army. You don't get to that position by being dumb or impulsive. And not to play the race card again, but how awesome of a general do you have to be to become the governor of Cyprus in the 1600s if you're black? Like, probably one of the greatest leaders and generals of his generation. Before Iago comes along, Othello and Des are rock solid, and after Iago's done with Othello, he kills Desdemona and then he kills himself. One of Iago's greatest strengths as a homewrecker is his subtlety. He's like a samurai who can cut a relationship in half so quickly and so easily that for a little while the relationship is still standing and it starts taunting him as he walks away from it, telling Iago that it missed him, and then suddenly the top half slides off the bottom half and blood sprays everywhere. How does Iago set Othello on the path to murder? When they're having a conversation, Iago asks Othello if, when he was courting Desdemona, Cassio knew of their love. Othello says that he did. Cassio knew them both very well and would often exchange letters between the two of them. And then Iago says a single word. Indeed? ? Othello asks Iago, what do you mean indeed? Iago just says, oh, I didn't know you knew each other. And Othello says, why, does that seem strange to you? And Iago's like, nah, man, I just didn't know you knew each other. And Othello's like, do you think he's an honest man? And Iago's like, as far as I know, man. Direct quotes from Shakespeare.
That's straight out of the Shakespeare.
Straight out of
yeah.
Shakespeare. And that is all it takes. The seed is planted, and Iago's later actions will make it grow into a horrible and beautiful tree of hate and murder-suicide. But the thing that really puts Iago over the top, the thing that makes him the Wayne Gretzky of destroying marriages, is the fact that he does not act alone in his deception. He finds people adjacent to his targets, figures out what they want, and puts them in the right place at the right time to do his work for him. He gets Cassio to get drunk and fight Rodrigo, which leads to Othello stripping Cassio of his position. He then tells Cassio that if he wants Othello to give him his position back, the best way is to get Desdemona on his side. Cassio goes and talks to Desdemona, Othello walks in on them talking, and so Cassio immediately stands up and leaves, making Othello think that they were talking about secret stuff that he wasn't privy to. And the smoking gun of evidence that he uses to convince Othello of Desdemona's infidelity beyond all doubt, her handkerchief, he doesn't even steal it. He gets Emilia to steal it and plant it in Cassio's room. Iago asks Othello if his wife has a handkerchief with strawberries on it. Othello says that she does, and Iago says that he saw Cassio with it. And then so later, Othello asks Desdemona where the handkerchief is, and she says she can't find it. And he asks her why not, and she can see he's getting upset, so in order to change the subject, she starts innocently talking about Cassio and asking Othello to give him back his position. And Othello's all like, when did you start caring about Cassio so much? So Iago does so little throughout the course of this play that to an outsider, it really looks like he's doing nothing at all. But every choice that he makes is perfect. And in like 3 or 4 moves, he tricks everyone and he wins. Iago can work his way into any hairline crack in any relationship and widen it and destroy the relationship completely.
It's more like he just points at a crack and then he tricks you into widening it and destroying everything.
It's actually more like he points at a surface with no cracks in it and is like, hey, you see a crack there? And even though there isn't a crack, he tricks you into making the crack and then widening it and destroying everything.
It's actually more like he looks at a totally smooth surface and you're like, Iago, what's wrong? And he's like, nothing. And then you're like, what, do you see a crack there? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And then he just walks away. So, man, Ron and Hermione.
Again, straight out of the Shakespeare.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ron and Hermione are a volatile couple. J.K. Rowling herself says that Hermione should have gone with Harry, not with Ron. Furthermore, she says that even though Ron and Hermione ended up together, they'd still need some pretty intensive relationship counseling. They are not a strong couple to begin with, and any of the many imperfections in their relationship is incredibly fertile ground for Iago to work with. In Othello, Iago focuses his ire on 3 individuals, Othello, Desdemona, and Cassio, and makes them believe in a love triangle that doesn't actually exist. So, what does he have to work with here? Well, what about Ron, Hermione, and Harry? Ron's biggest psychological hangup is his inferiority complex and his enduring frustration at constantly feeling second best. After Harry's name came out of the Goblet of Fire, Ron immediately suspected him of cheating and completely shunned him. He eventually came around, but this event illustrates, first, how Ron tends to leap to unfortunate and illogical decisions, and second, how Ron's jealousy of Harry is always bubbling just below the surface, and it doesn't take much to make it boil over. But Ron becomes particularly moody, temperamental, and prone to leaping to the completely wrong conclusion when it comes to Harry and Hermione's relationship. In Half-Blood Prince, anytime Harry and Hermione are shown as being close friends, Ron immediately gets visibly jealous. In Deathly Hallows, when Hermione suggests that they should go help Harry in his struggle against Voldemort, Ron petulantly says, "I get it, you choose him," before walking away. But Hermione isn't without her own envies. When Ron begins a relationship with Lavender Brown, Hermione is so jealous that she conjures a flock of attack canaries, which severely scratch up Ron.
So
I want an
vicious.
attack canary.
So vicious. Furthermore,
What's the CR of an attack canary?
well,
they
negative
attack in
one.
a swarm.
yeah, it's clearly
so
a swarm creature.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you can summon it with a second level spell?
I would imagine so, yeah, summon swarm. But she's not a
Okay.
druid, so
Yeah, but
Yeah.
each canary in that swarm is -1 CR, so really it's like the shittiest swarm.
you lose experience points for
Yeah.
killing it. Okay, good.
In other words, take a few shots.
Yes. Furthermore, remember that Hermione constantly seeks approval from her teachers and is devastated whenever she doesn't get it. In Prisoner of Azkaban, an encounter with a boggart reveals that her biggest fear is failing out of school. With Iago firmly in the place of the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, her natural inclinations will put her in the exact frame of mind to be manipulated. Now, I know that my opposition will talk about how Ron and Hermione will probably figure out that Iago is manipulating them. But will they really? Semester after semester, Hogwarts has served as home to any number of nefarious individuals in the guise of teachers, and it always took Team Potter the whole freaking year to get to the bottom of it. Hell, Ron had a dark wizard disguised as his pet rat for years and never realized it. Iago takes Othello and Desdemona's relationship from looking like the ending of a rom-com to looking like the cold open of a CSI episode in about a week. Ron and Hermione simply won't have the time to figure out what Iago's doing to them until it's much, much too late. Now, of course, Ron and Hermione make up eventually after each fight. I think that, without Iago's outside pressure, Othello and Desdemona would have ultimately made up too. But that's the thing about Iago. He doesn't let up. He convinces his targets that they can't confide in their beloved and gives them misinformation specifically designed to throw them off the correct course of action, while simultaneously convincing them that they can only trust him. Maybe Ron starts to believe that Hermione no longer wants to be with someone as mediocre as him and has secretly been seeing Harry. Maybe Hermione learns from her trusted, honest teacher about how Ron still calls her a mudblood when he thinks she can't hear him. With Iago's constant influence, one of them will ultimately be convinced to do something rash and irrevocable.
Ron and Hermione convinced me I should believe in love. After love, after love.
Iago is widely considered one of the great villains of literary history, the most nefarious, cunning, and evil antagonist ever devised by the bard, blah, blah, blah. You know what I say to that? You made the most insecure married dude in the entire Venetian Empire suspect the one thing that every insecure married dude suspects via the grand plan of relocating a napkin. That's seriously impressive. You should try convincing a toddler that there might be monsters under his bed. I think you could pull it off. What you can't pull off is destroying the relationship between Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley. Better characters than you have tried, and all of them had magic powers. The strength of their love for one another has been tested through massive book after massive book, and by the end of the series, their daughter's old enough to attend Hogwarts. So, let's consider for a moment this great Shakespearean breaker-upper and what it was that he actually did. Contrary to the calumny perpetrated by Dan and Colin. So, he tried to sabotage Othello and Desdemona by squealing on them to her dad. That didn't work, though it was an occasion for Desdemona's father, Brabantio, to warn Othello about her potential infidelity, so Brabantio is actually the first person to plant that little seed in Othello's mind, not Iago, just saying. Anyway, then Iago's wife Emilia picked up a fallen handkerchief and handed it to him because Shakespeare reasons? Seriously, Emilia, you never once thought to ask why this dude kept demanding you steal a handkerchief, then snatched it from you once you accidentally got your hands on it? Never mind. Then Iago plants the handkerchief in the home of his conversation with Cassio to make Othello think Cassio and Desdemona are sleeping together. He accomplishes this by the brilliant strategy of muttering the name of Cassio's real lover under his breath so Othello can't hear him. My God, he hit his finishing move, the discreet whisper. Damn. Villain of the century. The point is that breaking up Othello and Desdemona isn't really that hard to do. Othello already has an inferiority complex because he's a Moor. There's already part of him that believes Desdemona could never actually love him. And it's not like they're a well-established couple or anything. They're newlyweds who up and eloped like a few days ago because Othello told Desdemona some cool war stories. Iago doesn't do anything out of the ordinary here. He just moves a couple of pieces into position to make things devolve faster. Contrary to what Dan thinks, I think that if he hadn't done anything, Othello and Desdemona would likely still have fallen apart, especially because Othello turns out to be a jealous, vicious, completely unhinged rage factory who goes from believing in true love to believing in his own abandonment in about 100 lines. If Iago is one of fiction's greatest villains, it's because he's one of the original psychopaths, a man with non-existent morals and inexplicable motives. It's not because he's good at ending relationships. And he sure as hell can't end a relationship that has taken such work to build over such a long period of time as Hermione and Ron's. The love between Othello and Desdemona was tested exactly twice, and the second time, it snapped like a twig, and with about as much effort required. Ron and Hermione's love for one another started getting tested years before they even knew they loved one another. In the third book, they fight over their warring pets and prompt Harry to wonder if they'll ever talk to each other again. In the fourth book, they fight over Hermione going to the Yule Ball with Victor Crumb because Ron wasn't brave enough to ask her first. In the sixth book, they almost hook up, but Ron's unexpected relationship with Lavender makes things worse than ever before. And in the seventh book, Ron straight up walks out on Hermione and Harry, accusing Hermione of choosing his best friend over him, as you mentioned. These two have been through the works, guys. Worse than anything Iago ever did to anyone. Ron went face-to-face with a piece of Voldemort's soul that magically showed him visions of Hermione kissing Harry and told Ron that nobody would ever love him. 1/7 of the Dark Lord himself caused more pain than Iago could dream of causing, and guess what? They still end up together. That's not going to change because a remedial defense against the dark arts teacher who talks funny and can't actually do magic keeps trying to get them to notice the pieces of scrap parchment he's planted under their desks. Kit?
Sorry, Team Iago, but Ron and Hermione's story is straight up a Shakespearean comedy. You know, since they get married at the end. But since we're doing a hypothetical scenario where Iago's evil ass gets involved, that hasn't happened yet. However, unlike the idiot, anger management lacking Othello and the way too faithful for her own good Desdemona, Ron and Hermione will have Iago pulling his hair out and probably ending up in Azkaban getting kissed by Dementors. Ron and Hermione are the classic hate to friendship to love story. Author J.K. Rowling admits that having them wind up together was a wish fulfillment, and that in hindsight, she would have had Hermione wind up with Harry. But she didn't. She wrote the story the way she wrote the story. And many fans, including this one, believe that her original decision was the correct one. Think about it. If this trio of friends' relationships ended with the leading male ending up with the best girl, it'd be so cliche. And it would be super awkward for Ron, leaving him feeling like a third wheel. But instead, Ron and Hermione fall in love while simultaneously supporting the lead in his quest to defeat Voldemort and get some Weasley loving of his own.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the top. Hermione is the counterweight to Ron's fiery side. I promise I wasn't making a ginger pun. Because, let's face it, Ron can be kind of a hothead at times, I'll admit it. In fact, his imperfection is what makes him an interesting character beyond his comic relief. Does that make him like Othello? Hells to the no! Othello is a general with a lot to prove and a very quick and violent temper. Othello is ready to choke a bitch on practically Iago's word alone. I mean, Ron gets mad, but shit, yo! All Iago had to do was make Othello doubt Desdemona in order to make his jealousy grow into plans for murder. Like murder, though? Cuckoldry deserves murder? Ron gets testy, but he genuinely cares for Hermione. His big heart is part of what makes him a Gryffindor, and it's what keeps him coming back to Hermione after he realizes he's been immature. And she forgives him because she's mature enough to do so, and loves him enough to let it go and help him grow as a person. They don't ever actually give up on each other. Now let's look at what Hermione brings that the poor Desdemona could not. Unlike most wizards who are spoiled by the luxury that is magic, Hermione readily relied on logic to get through school and a goddamn wizard war. For example, she was one of the few who pieced together the truth about Remus Lupin and his lycanthropy. Her logical side also makes her skeptical about claims that have no proof, such as her dismissal of the notion of Deathly Hallows being more than a story without any actual evidence. Ron might be a derp, but Hermione is going to see through Iago's game and beat him at it. Truth potion, anyone? 3 drops of Veritaserum slipped into his drink while under the invisibility cloak on loan from Harry. Though really, if they spy on him from under the cloak, they'd probably just catch him monologuing to himself about his evil plans. Self-indulgent prick.
Seriously.
Iago will fail utterly and will fall into the same curse that has afflicted every other defense against the dark arts teacher. Go snog a Dementor, you wanker.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the rebuttal phase.
I see what you did there. And there.
But
Just like Shakespeare, she too is engaging in witty wordplay.
et tu bate. We're done. I'm sorry. Okay. Iago, rebut that.
So you mentioned that you think that Othello is a hothead. I would put forth, like, as we posited earlier, I think that if he had a temper and if he was like impulsive or dumb or easily manipulated or this kind of thing, then it would be a sign that he has kind of like, a weak intellect or something like that, which I think that if he had any character flaws at all, a lifetime of being surrounded by people that call him all sorts of horrible racial slurs and like jump to all sorts of horrific conclusions about him. Like we said the whole thing about people thinking that he bewitched Desdemona, like Brabantio says that. And what do we see Othello does? Does Othello get mad? Does he say like, you're all a bunch of assholes and like draw his sword? No, he just gives this very logical and heartfelt speech about how they're all wrong, and he explains himself calmly and he wins everybody over. Like we see that Othello, when he gets tested, he is capable of keeping a cool head. And I mean, there is no way that if he had any character flaws, he would have gotten the number of promotions that he would have needed to get his way up through the ranks. Like it just doesn't happen. You don't become a governor. He had to do it on merit because obviously he didn't do it from like his dad didn't give him that position or anything like that, so it had to be on merit.
You're saying he has no character flaws?
I'm saying that
Othello has no character flaws.
I'm saying he has less character flaws than the characters than Ron and Hermione, obviously.
I found it interesting, Miles, that you said that Othello has an inferiority complex and that he doesn't feel as though he's worthy of Desdemona. Like that, you might as well be talking about Ron and Hermione right there. Ron has always felt inferior to Hermione. From the moment that she started teaching him the correct way of saying Wingardium Leviosa, he got so mad that he started calling her names. She got upset. She ran into the bathroom and almost died when a troll attacked the school. They have a long history of Ron always feeling second best, not only to Harry, but also to Hermione, his girlfriend.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And they have a long history of that happening. They've had a long time to work through that shit and end up together in the end. Whereas Othello, the first time that shit gets tested with his inferiority complex, he goes and kills his wife.
Right, and the difference is that in Harry Potter, no one is actively working to set Ron and Hermione against each other. I would argue
they're just
that's
doing it to
different.
themselves.
It's not a difference between Othello and Ron. It's a difference between what their situations are. Here, Iago is going to be actively working to break them up. That has never happened to them before. Even with the Horcrux that you mentioned, the Horcrux didn't create these feelings out of nothing. It just merely amplified what was already there. And furthermore, they knew that the Horcrux would have this effect on them, and it still worked. So imagine how irrational Ron is going to be without Voldemort as a clear excuse for the way he's feeling.
Most of your examples so far have been from early in the books. Almost everything you've talked about in terms of their relationship and how they have not gotten along have been from early points in the book. In fact, most of your examples of their characters in general, such as Hermione's obsession with good grades, are from early in the books. Later on in the book, she openly admits that school's not the most important thing because she's learned and grown as a character and gotten past a lot of that shit. That's my point.
Dude, the attack canaries were in Half-Blood Prince. Like, the whole Horcrux thing was in Deathly Hallows. That's 6 and 7.
And now that Voldemort's out of the way, they don't have this greater thing to be worrying about. They can go right back to being petty, and she can go right back to being obsessed with school. Because once all that big drama's out of your life,
I don't think that's how character development works, Colin. That's actually not what happens. No, it's not. We're talking about the well, I don't know who you know, but we're talking about these characters as they are at the end of the war. And at the end of the war, they are extremely different people than these people you've been describing throughout the course of the books because they have had 7 years to work through all this crap.
Okay, can I throw in a couple more just quick points real quick? You mentioned the possibility of using a truth potion on them. We know that Iago is very careful and in all of these things that he does. And if he's spent some time in the wizarding world, he may not be an expert in magic himself, but we can assume that he will put in all sorts of preparations to make sure that, he's not going to leave himself vulnerable to getting spells cast on him or getting poisoned. I mean, you can go to whatever the evil Diagon Alley is called. Which one is and
Nocturne Alley.
That's the one, Nocturne Alley.
Or Thoggen Alley.
Orthogonally.
That's a joke for you chess players out there.
So yes, you can go to Orthogonally and get all that, evil stuff you need to keep yourself protected from, meddling children. And then the other thing that he has on his side this time that he does not is he has all of the people in Hogwarts that hate Ron and Hermione, like say 1/4 of the school, all of Slytherin House, that can work for him, which, there's so many people that do not like Ron and Hermione and Harry. So he
Again, by the end of the 7th book, that's no longer the case.
Correct.
The houses are more united at that point than they were before.
Yeah, all the good Slytherins are totally cool now.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're good Slytherins.
And all the ones that were Death Eaters are either dead or locked up.
Once again, I think that all of this stuff is just people setting aside their differences to defeat Voldemort. But once the common enemy is gone, I think a lot of that stuff does come back.
Look, your problems with fundamental human nature and your false belief that it's fundamentally bad are not my problem, Colin. Look, your opinions on the humanity needing a common enemy to act like good people are your own issue. I don't share them, and I don't think they're true.
Can I reboot their rebuttal? I was trying so hard not to interrupt. Okay.
Well,
You can-
guess
you
what?
have
It's
your own
your
rebuttal.
I
turn
know.
now.
Kid, it's all you.
All right. So, you mentioned he's like too intelligent to have a horrible temper. You can be intelligent and still have a horrible temper, i.e. Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man. It's an interesting character thingy.
So what do we do when we make a Marvel reference? If we take a shot with a G&D reference, then do we
Smoke a bowl.
do a line? I don't know.
do a line. Oh God. This podcast is really gonna go down. Okay, also people fly off the handle about different things. His insecurities are clearly activated by cuckoldry, not so much the racism he's probably grown used to.
Yeah, if I can just jump in for 1 second, kid,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
I'll hand it back to you. There's the whole bit in the famous temptation scene where he goes back and forth and he talks about how, he won't give in to feelings of jealousy. He doesn't do that. But it's revealed throughout the course of the scene that he has had these feelings of jealousy the entire time.
Well, and I think that more speaks to Iago's strength, because Iago isn't the sort of villain who is insensitive to his enemies. He's so brutal because he is so completely empathetic, because he so completely understands his targets. The closer he grows to Othello, the more effectively he controls him. And he's not only effective, he's also flexible. He identifies that, like, Othello's weakness is his rage, Desdemona's kindness, Cassio's lack of judgment. He plays the qualities of his victims like a symphony.
And we
He might
argue
be a
that
good
he's
judge
not
of-
going to find those easy qualities in Ron and Hermione.
He's not going to
Really?
use the same strategies, but they have their own flaws, so.
Him being a great judge of character is fine, but you argued that the Othello-Desdemona relationship was flawless and would go on forever without his influence. The fact that Othello has harbored these feelings of jealousy for the entirety of their marriage denies that.
As for Othello's greatness at being a general, being good at war doesn't make one good at love. And the play about his tragedy seems to prove that. He's a wife-murdering crazy pants. That's why Iago has to do so little.
But who put the crazy in his pants?
The
Crazy was always
there.
in his
He
pants.
He pantsed him, sir.
So everyone could see the crazy.
Yes.
That's
Anyway.
right.
Wow, that metaphor actually went a lot further than I thought it would.
Anyway.
Well, look, okay, even if Ron doesn't turn angry toward Harry and Hermione, he may break up with Hermione in a misguided attempt to, quote-unquote, allow them to be together. He's shown to be willing to sacrifice himself for his friends after he allows himself to be sacrificed during the game of wizard chess in the first book, and he's just boneheaded enough to think that might actually be the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
real good thing that, the chick that loves him is not a bonehead.
So following your yet another reference from the first book, allow me to share with you a line spoken to Ron by Harry in the 7th book regarding Hermione. She's like my sister. I love her like a sister. That happens in book 7. Problem solved.
You mentioned that it takes the Potter crew the whole year to figure out Iago's scheme, yeah? I wasn't aware there was a time limit. They seem to do pretty damn well at besting each year's spotlight bad guy by the end of each year. And yeah, those Death Eaters are also pretty damn sneaky. The Potter gang sure are awesome for helping to defeat them, often having to figure shit out on their own, especially in the last book.
Hermione, in particular, has proven very adept at seeing through people's false smiles and false friendliness. Iago definitely has everybody in the Othello play fooled in terms of, they all think he's an honest guy and a good guy and everything. They're all stupid. I think we've gone through pretty great lengths to demonstrate that literally everyone they interact with in that play is a fucking idiot. Emilia doesn't do anything about the handkerchief. Iago's little toady, is an emo kid who talks about drowning himself all the time. Othello is, again, vicious rage monster. It's like,
Yeah, they're all like characters out of like a
stupid.
young adult novel or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
they're all real Weasleys, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're like a bunch of teenagers.
Well, these teenagers are smarter than them because, take an example of Professor Umbridge from the 5th book. Hermione sniffs her out real fucking quick and doesn't need magic to do
Dude,
it. And there are numerous other examples.
Her name
of that.
was Umbridge. She forced Harry to write a punishment into his own arm.
She sniffs her out the first time they meet in class.
Iago is so
Actually-
much better at being a wolf in
actually,
sheep's clothing
she's-
than Umbridge is.
She sniffs her out during her opening speech to the school.
Yeah, so did I. As a reader, I was like, oh, this is totally going to be the villain for this book.
Well, that's because
Iago
he knows
is-
the way the books work.
Iago isn't good at being a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's just surrounded by crazy people and stupid people. And he also gets supreme benefits of luck, like the fact that Desdemona chooses that particular moment after Iago and Othello have been talking to bring up the Cassio thing, after Cassio has asked her to help him. Everything that happens in that story, Iago, moves a couple of things and is like, meh, maybe that'll work. And then random ass shit happens and it works because accidents.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient. If you really analyze that play, man, it's a good thing all those things happened.
Yeah, that's
My
what's called a
experience,
Xanatos Gambit.
Yeah, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
I think that what you guys are seeing as luck is actually super good planning. Iago himself, when he manipulates Roderigo into killing Cassio, he says, now, whether he kill Cassio or Cassio him, or each do kill the other, every way makes my gain. He stacks the deck so that no matter which way the cards fall, he comes out in the end.
All right, you need to speak American, because seriously.
Nah, he gets supremely lucky, dude. There are numerous times. Maybe that fight he had all the angles, but there are numerous times in which things could have gone totally wrong if one random occurrence happened a different way, and it didn't.
All right, let's just get on to the real argument.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
enough of the preamble. It's time for the real show, right?
I honestly forgot about the lightning round.
Ugh.
I was so
Oh, no.
into this.
Well.
I'm like, oh no.
You
It's
forgot about
okay.
the what?
I think it was you repressed the memory.
Oh, wait, let's hear it. There it is. Oh, sound effect. Oh, good. Okay.
What's that sound? What's that
Those got
sound?
tracked. All right. Ron and Hermione decide that they want a summer job so that they can go to cutesy drive-ins and have romantic candlelit dinners. Well, luckily, a local theater is hiring a couple to perform something special over the summer with the following tagline. Can you feel the love tonight? All you need is love. My heart will go on, and I'd give up forever to touch you. Yes, Ron and Hermione have signed up to perform an original music number to profess their love for each other and get some money out of it, too. There is one issue, though. Iago happens to moonlight as a music theater reviewer.
Of course he does.
In order to get their money, Ron and Hermione have to pull off one hell of a performance. Team Ron and Hermione, I am looking for the title of your performance love song, what you will be acting out on stage, and please, luckily, there's a man and a woman on your team, so give me a sample of it so I can get all excited inside.
Oh,
Liz, you can
Bonus points for
Definitely.
singing.
go fuck
oh my
yourself.
God. Yeah, seriously, go fuck yourself.
Team Iago,
Are you doing it?
Hey, Liz.
Dan is like
Iago,
dying
fuck
over here.
yourself. Iago, fuck yourself, Liz.
See, okay. So this requires Team Ron and Hermione to go first. So Iago, you can review it. So Iago, I want you to tell me what the first things in this play you will lambast in your review. And please give me a sample of your best quotes from it so I can eat some popcorn as the shit hits the fan. Ron and Hermione will have to go first. Iago will go second. And then both teams will get a quick rebuttal, if necessary, at the end. Let's go.
Boy.
All right, so the song is going to be called Hallow, and it's based off Hello by Evanescence, but a
Yes!
love version of that. So what we're basically going with is basically a song about learning to get over the war Has no one told you we're not questing? Hallows, they are destroyed, giving us a life to live now. Hallows.
Oh my god, tears.
It has a style of Evanescence, so I'm going to say it's pretty dark. Stage is often pretty dark. There's definitely a Tim Burton feel to it.
But of course it has a happy ending, because the thing about the show is that trial after trial after trial happens again. Like, the psychological damage, and sometimes they just feel like they can't get over the PTSD that they've all accrued over the course of this wizard war. But it has a happy ending.
Yes,
they stay together at the end.
That's where the musical changes into a much like brighter Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat sort of thing, where everyone's costumes are radically different. Lights go up, wands go up.
Yeah. And the style of Evanescence changes to some of their more recent work, which is a little bit more lighthearted and less angsty.
Will this wake me up inside?
Wand me up inside.
Oh, no.
Wand me.
Oh, whoa, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
show
Oh
that
my
children
god,
can
yeah.
come to.
Oh yeah. Let me write that in my fan fiction.
Is this
journal.
kind of like, is this like Daniel Radcliffe's Equus? Where just everyone feels really uncomfortable by the end of it?
And just junk hanging out as
perfect.
far as the eye can see.
Excellent. Well, if it's gonna
We
be
could
like
do
that.
we could do going under the invisibility
Oh,
cloak.
shit.
Oh.
Going under.
It's like two genre shifts in one show.
Oh.
Okay. How's it gonna open?
Triumph, victory after the war, man. That's what it's about. And then it's like the couple attempts to build a new life after that, and finds that harder than one might originally anticipate, because there's a villain in this piece who continually attempts, for some unexplained reason that actually he refuses to explain at the end of the show. There's this villain that keeps trying to break them up, just like because he's a psychopath and for shits and giggles, but it never ever works.
You're really gonna get a good review with putting that as your villain, I'm sure.
All right.
I don't read your newspaper.
The latest issue of Music Play Reviews is out. Iago, what did you have to say about Hollows?
Well, actually, I think that Iago has a column in the Daily Prophet called Your Pal Yog's Review. So the review begins with, a show is bad when the brightest spot in it is the lead male's hair. By the end of it, it was so bad that I decided to go next door to see if there was a concert of mandrakes playing.
Oh, very nice.
I would give the lighting a 10 out of 10 because it prevented me from seeing the horrific scenery throughout the vast majority of the show.
By the end of it, it was so bad that I wanted to drive my own pen into my chest. Happy pen, this is thy cap.
I enjoyed the show much more the first time I saw it, when it was called Rock of Ages.
Oh, dude, low blow.
I give it 1 out of 5 strawberry handkerchiefs.
Oh.
It wasn't half bad. It was all bad.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. Oh, ho, ho.
Well, you know what?
That was me being the old man from the Muppets.
Because, as John Green says, the only following worth having is a cult following, and that's what we're going to get.
That's right.
Cults mean something different in the wizarding world. Like, that's a much more negative
We're
association.
going to be a happy cult. Best cult ever.
That's what all the cults say.
That's the spirit.
I think you guys are mischaracterizing the person you're supposed to be advocating for.
And also,
because
he's
supposed to be.
I didn't believe
He's
the
your pal
characterization of the
Yog.
villain at all. Like, to think that a harmless and well-meaning school teacher, very honest and very trustworthy, could ever attempt such base acts of villainy is beyond imagination.
See, there we go. That was more what I was looking for. But the but to be so abrasive and brash in the review is completely out of character for Iago. What he would do is use backhanded compliments, which you guys simply are not creative enough to supply.
We are not, but he is.
I'm sorry, we can't all.
Director.
I'm sorry, we can't all rip off Evanescence lines.
Excellent job. Valiant effort. I am going to decide this mess. I'll be back.
Oh God.
Ugh.
This was a fun one to research, though. This was different from the usual stuff we get to do.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It was fun to get to read some Shakespeare. So
Yeah. That was true.
Yeah.
Seen any of like the weird adaptations?
I've seen a few weird Shakespeare adaptations, but I've read about a ton.
No, the Othello ones.
Oh, Othello? No, I haven't seen a weird Othello. Well, no, I saw one show. It was a traveling group from England, and I think there were only 4 actors in it, but they played every role, and it was really, really good.
I don't know. I was talking about like maybe that basketball movie.
Oh,
Basketball
no,
movie?
I didn't see with Julia Stiles.
Yeah, there was totally a basketball movie based on Othello. I never saw it, but it looked crappy.
All right.
Yeah, and the main character.
I mean, I've seen a lot.
Obviously, they wouldn't like obviously in a modern day realistic adaptation of Othello, they wouldn't want to give the main character a silly name like Othello. So instead, they give him the name of Odin, which
Oh right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, for reals.
All right.
And he was the star of the basketball team. So there you go.
Why not just Othello? If you're gonna give him a silly name, make it like Oscar, or just keep it Othello.
Oh my god,
like...
yeah, Oscar. Otis.
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 Shit, at least has OT in it.
Yeah, that dog from Milo and Otis needs to get more work. What's he been doing lately?
Oh, yeah,
He
it's
murdered
called the version
murdered
of
Milo.
Othello.
Iago tricked him into murdering Milo.
There you go.
He probably ate some chocolate.
That would be the saddest play because doggies died.
Well, technically, a cat would have died.
Oh, and then
right.
Otis kills himself by eating chocolate at the end.
Oh no!
And in that, of course, Iago was a parrot. The one from Splatty.
Oh,
Oh,
I want to
God.
see this so badly. I want to see the all-animal version of Othello, where Iago is played by Gilbert Gottfried in a parrot suit.
Dude.
I gotta say, I was like, part of me was really hoping that one or both of you would just like completely forget the original source material and just come at us with the parrot.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been great if we started off acting like we researched the wrong Iago.
That'd be
So
awesome.
he's disguising himself as one of Dumbledore's phoenixes. Is that what it is?
That's right.
Man,
That's right.
That didn't happen.
Miles, you can edit that in, right? Just edit that in, us talking about that.
Yeah, no, I don't have enough work to do
just,
on this.
just cut and paste all of our words and rearrange them so it sounds like we're talking about the Gilbert Gottfried character.
You have enough audio by now that you can just like assemble robot versions of our voices. Just
Yeah,
saying,
Miles could probably make us say anything he wanted to, which is a little,
just a little
scary.
sound. Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah,
hello, hello.
Think about that one.
I mean, we would sound like an audio ransom note.
Order. So I like how Team Iago brought up the point how, Othello was a hothead. He was easy to influence, and Ron is a hothead. I also liked how Ron and Hermione brought up Ron beat Voldemort's little thing against him, saying no one would ever love him, and he was able to get through that. And, the teachers at Hogwarts do tend to be corrupt, and they will fly under the radar a lot of the time. But the thing is, Iago was good at tempting, corrupting, whatever, 2 hot-headed people. And I think Hermione is going to pull it through for Ron and Hermione. And so you guys win.
Yeah. Love conquers all, assholes.
I thought when Liz was the judge, I thought there was no way that true love was going to conquer all.
I know. I can't believe I fell for the cliche thing, but they did a good job. But you guys had some of the best one-liners from a lightning round ever.
Oh, we forgot to mention, Miles found this out.
Oh, yeah, we totally forgot about that.
Ron's Patronus is a Jack Russell Terrier, Hermione's is an otter, and Jack Russell's chase otters.
Yeah, it was meant to be.
Super cute.
Okay.
I love all
Do they
the
murder
hidden
them?
things.
Do they murder
No.
otters?
Nope.
They catch them?
We were actually sure to look that up. They only chase, they do not murder.
I just love how much Patronuses say about each person who summons them. So what does my Godzilla Patronus say about me?
That you hate humanity and have really bad breath?
Yeah,
And
it's
knock
actually
over lots of
And
things.
knock over stuff all the time, yes.
Oh my
like
god.
glasses of water. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, we have the Ice Battle with Elsa versus Sub-Zero versus Iceman versus the Ice King from Adventure Time.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction Podcast on Twitter at SmashFicPodcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
And let me know. I'm gonna read the main round stuff, and if you guys have an issue with it, just let me know.
I'm sure it'll be fine / make me want to put a gun in my mouth.
No. This is the main round, and my lightning round this time really.
Liz,
isn't that
don't
great.
even.
Don't even.
even.
Shut up. Stop talking
swear
now.
It's not bad. It's just.
I've been hurt too many times, Liz.
It's my present. To
I had
you
to
to
turn
not
Katniss
smash
into
your
a
heart.
motivational speaker last time.
I'm
Do you know what that's
sorry.
like? Do you know what that
Oh
does
my
to a person?
It motivates
That makes
me
you
at least.
lose.
Okay.
You didn't have to argue for speed race.
Oh.
It's hard.